What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. This is our E-Ride Pro SS, and as you can see it has some super sick modifications on it, and that is the point of this video. We need to talk about what aftermarket modifications you can do to your Pro SS, what fits, what parts you can pull from other types of bikes and put on here. So we're gonna dive into it, show you everything you need to know about this bike. If you guys end up enjoying this video, please hit that subscribe button. Let's get into it. Thanks to Warp 9 Racing here in Salt Lake City, Utah. They hooked us up and we got this build started. So we obviously chose purple. I think it looks super sick on this Pro SS. Let's go over the parts that we put on from Warp 9, and then we'll dive more into what other aftermarket parts fit and what parts don't fit. Because a lot of this bike is similar to other e-moto models, but a lot of it's different as well. So let's start up at the top here. We have a Warp 9 riser bar. This is their 3-inch riser. We also are using a Warp 9 direct mount stem lock. Now you can also do a Warp 9 direct mount stem, however it is too wide to actually fit with the stock display, so it comes out too wide here. We ended up using a ebike direct mount stem, so we'll have a link to that down in the description, as well as all of these Warp 9 parts. Warp 9 already has a specific section on their website for the Pro SS, so you can go on there and see what parts fit and order them directly from them. They will be doing a bracket to be able to fit this display at some point in the future, so you guys will just have to watch. If you want a Warp 9 stem, it will eventually be available in that section and you'll know that it will fit. Moving on, we have the Warp 9 headlight switch. This mounts right up to the stock brakes, which is super clean looking, wire running down. It has the same plug connector as a Surron and a Talaria Sting MX3. We'll flash it up on screen. It is not the same connector as a Talaria Sting R, which is different. So this is your standard connector. You can plug in pretty much all Surron aftermarket lights, although this stock headlight does a great job, and I really don't think you need to upgrade it unless you literally ride only at night and you want as much light as you could possibly get. So that's your headlight. We did throw on some Pro Taper grips on there because that makes a huge difference. We're gonna go over in another section of the video the first upgrades that we recommend for this bike, because it's a really nice bike out of the box, but there's a few little things you may want to do. Grips is one of them, spoiler alert. As we move down to the front wheel here, as you guys can see, this is massive. So we went with an 18-21-inch wheel set, and this is a pretty large moto tire. This is a Dunlop MX34F, and it's a 80 by 121. And as you can see, it fits very easily inside that fork. There's tons of room, and this tire is massive. Let me put the stock tire up next to it. This is the rear wheel, but it's the exact same tire. Look at the difference. So that's one of the things we recommend upgrading, is specifically tires. You don't necessarily need to do a larger wheel set, although I think it really suits this bike, and we'll get into that more later. You guys can see how much bigger that 21 is with a huge tire compared to the stock 19. Pretty massive difference. So this front wheel hub spacing is going to be the same as any of the other e-motos, Surron, Talaria. You could do smaller supermotos, you could do stock 19 with a different rear if you wanted. You could do this 21. It does fit in the fork just fine. With the 21-inch wheel, you do need to remove this fender because the big tire goes up there and does rub it if you bottom out your fork. Okay, let's move over to the back tire here. So this is, again, an 18-inch rear wheel. Typically, they do the 18 in the rear when you do a 21 in the front. It helps balance out the bike. You do a giant rear tire, which actually makes the diameter of the wheel larger than the stock 19. We're gonna grab this 19 again, show you the difference on this tire. So look at the difference on that. This is the stock rear tire. This is a Dunlop MX33 90 by 118 tire. This is the tire that me and Alex run on our Talaria Stings with the same rear wheel setup, and we love this tire. Tons of grip, tons of cushion, just makes your riding experience ripping the off-road trails a way better experience. So there is a lot of confusion around this bike and wondering what rear hub spacing this wheel is. Now this is a Surron stock rear hub spacing, so if you go on Warp 9, I think you can specifically pick this wheel and custom build it for this bike, but if not on their builder yet, you can just spec it as a Surron wheel and it will fit perfectly. The Talaria hub spacing is too wide for this bike, so you have to get Surron specific. The sprocket will fit from any moto. This is the same size as a stock 58, but this is an upgraded Warp 9 sprocket, much lighter. It's billet aluminum, super sick. Okay, let's talk about brakes and brake rotors. So as you can see, we have some upgraded Warp 9 rotors on here. Honestly, guys, these brakes have been pretty dang impressive, and we're pretty happy with the performance. This bike also comes with two 20mm rotors, which are larger than some other models, and this is the same size. This is a 220mm, 2.3mm thickness of the rotor, which we recommend for these brakes, and I think this is a great combo. The stock rotors are fine. These are nicer. These also have the titanium bolts. Those do fit. Okay, guys, so if you are buying the Warp 9 rotors for your Pro SS, on your stock wheels, they are surron specific size. So just, again, go into that Pro SS category under Warp 9 and you'll be able to get the right stuff. We also are running their 220mm front brake rotor. That is just a typical mountain bike style pattern. So same as surron, same as Talaria, same as even the upgraded Warp 9 wheel. Now, if you are buying a Warp 9 wheel and you want to get a rotor, they actually come with a rotor. So you can spec that when you're building it. But this, again, is your traditional mountain bike style pattern. This is no longer surron, so more brake rotors will fit this. But again, Warp 9 makes one that will fit your stock wheel if you wanted to go that route. Now, in talking about this brake rotor guard, there's something else we need to explain. We love that this protects your rotor, looks super clean, mounts your brake at the same time. But what we need to talk about is that we noticed something, is that when this wheel spins within the hub and everything, these bolts have been grinding on the mount for the brake. So let me grab this here. So this mounts essentially just like this, looks just like the other one, except for that when it spins, the rotors are literally grinding down the metal, and they've actually ground quite far to where you can feel quite a difference there. So you guys can see this is ground down. So that is something we've let E-Ride know that they need to fix. But if yours is rubbing, and I recommend checking it, Warp 9 has fixed the problem. Their version 2 guard that you can buy right now has a specific groove in it, specifically so that these don't rub. It's not specific for this bike. That's just their rotor guard that they've had for a while, and it fixed our problem. So we're stoked about that. It's kind of a bummer that E-Ride messed that up, but we've let them know, so hopefully that gets fixed. This is the surron specific rear disc guard, and then if we move on to the axle blocks, these are also the surron specific, but again, guys, you can just go on that Pro SS category and you'll be assured to get the right part. We love axle blocks because they allow you to adjust your wheel a lot easier, and you don't need to have a wrench on both sides when you're taking your wheel off. They have this nice little titanium cover, titanium bolts. They keep your wheel in straight, they keep it in more securely, and it makes it way easier if you're changing between different sizes of wheels or different sprocket sizes. You can adjust it so much quicker. Okay, let's move on to pegs. This is something we recommend on any stock bike. You've got to upgrade your pegs, and Warp 9 are our favorite. They look super sick. You can get all the different kinds of colors. This, again, is the surron specific spacing. So Talaria has a different spacing on their peg. Surron is different. So that's what this is. Again, Pro S category, go get yourself some pegs. Also, if you guys are wanting an upgraded kickstand, the Warp 9 surron specific, again, adjustable kickstand does work. With 1821 inch wheel set, we do recommend getting that adjustable one, because when you get the bike off, I'll just do it real quick for you so you can see. The kickstand does work, but it leans over fairly far. So if you were like on a trail that wasn't quite level, your bike would probably tip over and not work quite right. So we're gonna probably be getting an adjustable one in the future. So that's gonna wrap up all the upgrades we decided to do to this bike right now. Let's move on to our next category, which is the upgrades that we highly recommend that you do right away as soon as you get this bike. So first off, we already talked about pegs. The stock pegs are super slippery. They don't give you confidence with especially how fast this bike is and how hard you can ride it off-road. You gotta get yourself some grippy pegs. Next up, we're gonna talk about riser bar. Now, we're all kind of tall guys, so we like a tall bar. This is gonna be your 3-inch bar. That's why we did this. I think it makes a massive difference. To pair with that, grips. I think upgraded grips, Pro Taper specifically, is our favorite. It just makes a big difference in the feel of the bike. I mean, these are your touch points. So this is where you're hanging on. It's nice to have some good comfort there. Your only other upgrade that you really need are tires, front and rear. This bike is very powerful and comes with Obviously, we showed you those tires. They're really small. This is another 19-inch wheel that's on Reed's bike. So you guys can see this Dunlop MX33 is much larger than this tire. Believe it or not, these tires actually have the same measurement as far as their size, but you can see this is much larger. Now, this tire measures super small. This is going to be the typical size you would see with this measurement of 70 by 119. So we're going to link some tires down in the description. This is going to be one of them. We also do the Kendon Millville is a super great tire, super lightweight, but much larger than this. And we're going to recommend those tires front and rear. So you can like exact identical tire front and back. They're going to work great for you. And this bike really, really, really needs it. Otherwise, that's the only upgrades we recommend. Bar, pegs, grips, tires. That's it. But if you guys want to spend more money, 18-21-inch wheel set is definitely the way to go on this bike. It has enough power to really handle this heavier wheel set. This bike still will drag race faster than a Talaria Sting R, even with the huge 18-21-inch wheels, which is super cool. Because a lot of people hesitate doing the big heavy wheels and tires because it slows their bike down, which is true, it does. But it is worth it in our opinion, and this bike has the power to be able to do so. We're going to throw it up on our hanging scale in a second and see how much weight we added with this setup. But we're pretty impressed, and let's get into a few more things on this bike that can be upgraded and the things that you literally can't upgrade yet, but hopefully in the future you could. This bike definitely has the power to be able to push these heavier 18-21-inch wheels and big tires. You will lose a little bit of range though, so that is one downside to the big setup, but it's awesome for riding off-road. We've got the Pro SS up on the scale with our upgrades. These tires are fairly large, so let's see what it did. So we are at 148 pounds. So previously, this bike was 137 pounds bone stock on this exact same scale. So 11-pound difference. That's pretty big, but in all reality, this bike is still lighter than a stock Talaria Sting R. And again, giant tires, 18-21-inch wheel, super sick bike. And this bike has more power, so it's able to handle that. Now that you guys have seen the upgrades we've done to the bike, let's go over what else can be done to the bike. Now, there's a few more things. So for one, rear shock and fork. So this is gonna be the same size, specific rear shock as a Talaria, as a Surron. It will directly mount right up. So that's probably something we're gonna do in the future because this is such a cool bike. We wanna get some real premium suspension on it. But for the most part, it feels just fine right now. If we move on to the fork, again, any style kind of moto fork is gonna fit on this. Anything specific for Surron, for Talaria, for the 79 bike, all these kind of small motos that have a 200 mil fork on them, it's gonna work just fine. You can also upgrade these brakes with any other downhill mountain bike style brakes that you wanna put on there. We're using the TRP DHR Evo brakes on our Talarias. I think those would still be an upgrade for these. But honestly, we're pretty happy with these, especially with the upgraded Warp 9 rotors. As we move on, this seat we're pretty happy with. It doesn't have a ton of padding, but it's pretty nice. We are curious if the Luna float seat that is super popular for Surron will fit, so we're hoping to try that in the future. We just don't have one right now to try. Currently, there is no aftermarket suspension linkages that are upgradable on this bike. This does have a suspension linkage. A lot of people think that it doesn't. It has one link here and then one link that goes down here. It's kind of a unique design, but there is nothing currently available to fit that. And again, I don't think you necessarily need to upgrade that. I'm just letting you guys know and give you all the information that we've learned about this bike so you can come into purchasing it with enough info. Because if you want to upgrade everything possible on this bike, we're going to tell you what you can do and let you know those limitations. As you guys know, this bike runs with a belt reduction. So there's a belt going here to here that then spins your front sprocket to drive your wheel coming from the motor. Now that, we are not positive if it's the same size as a Surron or if it is upgradable with aftermarket parts. That's something we hope to test in the future. I would take a wild guess that it is the same, but we can't say for sure. Moving on, we've got battery and controller. Now, we opened this up because we had to see if the plugs to plug in an aftermarket controller were the same as any other option, and they are not. So you cannot plug a Surron upgraded controller, a Talaria upgraded controller into this bike. You are limited currently unless you have a custom wire harness built. Now, that might be something cool someone will do in the future, or maybe the aftermarket companies making the controllers might do that. But currently, again, this bike has a lot of power. We don't really feel a need to put a controller on it. Moving on to talk about battery, kind of staying with our power department. You can pop open this door. The battery does have the same standard connector as a surron, but the connector here that does all of your other connections on the battery and the BMS is different. So there is not a direct replacement battery or upgraded battery that you can put in here. It's also a little bit wider both ways. So a surron battery I think will drop in, but it will wobble quite a bit. Same with the Talaria battery. It's just a little bit different size. And again, the connectors are different, so you'd have to have adapters anyway. We don't know if any upgraded motors fit this bike yet, but again, that's not a problem because you don't need one, because you can't do an upgraded controller or battery to even warrant needing an upgraded motor. As we move on, we're gonna take this plastic off because the chain hits it super easy. Like, look at that. So every bump you hit, your chain just slaps that, makes a lot of noise. So we're gonna remove that, ride without it, and then we're gonna experiment with some of the plastics up here because we feel that the chain is rattling on something somewhere else, and it's a little bit annoying. So we're gonna experiment with that, try to iron out the rattling and make this bike feel a little bit quieter, a little bit smoother. Some of you may be wondering if like the Warp 9 peg lower kit or adjustable pegs fit. They do not. It's not the same mounting as Surron or Talaria. I'm sure a company may come out with something like that in the future, but it does not currently fit. This fender is the same as a lot of other models. It still attaches with 3 bolts underneath the fork and it looks exactly the same. So other models will mount up if you needed a new one. This plate is obviously the same, it just zip ties on. Again, all aftermarket Surron specific lights will mount right up to this bracket and plug in. Any Surron switch will fit. One more thing, the skid plate. We don't know if any aftermarket skid plates are gonna fit. We're missing that bolt. We know where it is, so don't worry about it. This is a much beefier skid plate than a stock Talaria or a stock Surron. We have no idea if the rear swing arm matches any other models or if you can do an upgraded swing arm. Again, we haven't felt like it was super flimsy, but again, this is the kind of questions that people ask us. So no, we don't know. So there's a lot of stuff that you guys could do to this bike. And I'm not saying this bike needs all this stuff. We're just, again, trying to give you guys all the info so that if you're purchasing this bike, you know what's possible with it. Some people want to build the absolute wildest build possible, and I still think a Talaria or a Surron is going to be better for building that. I think the best bike out of the box for a build is a Talaria. But this bike out of the box, we really don't feel you need to upgrade the power as much as you would with, say, those other models. So this is a awesome bike, great bang for the buck. There are some super cool upgrades that you can do to it right away. This is a great example. We love the purple. Once again, huge thanks to Warp 9 Racing here in Salt Lake. Go on their website, do their custom wheel builder, get yourself a set of wheels for your Surron, Talaria, Pro SS, 79 bike, Falcon M. Like, they make the sickest wheels. You can get all the colors and all these other parts as well. If you guys have more questions about the Pro SS, drop a comment. We will be sure to answer them. If you guys have seen any other upgraded parts on a Pro SS that we missed, drop us a comment. Again, let us know where you've seen it. Drop us a link to another YouTube video. We're keen to learn as well. But if you guys are interested in more videos on the Pro SS, also let us know what you'd like to see with it. I hope we didn't discourage you guys too much with our range test previously on this bike. It didn't do as well as we expected, and it was kind of surprising. But that doesn't make this bike a bad bike. It still had good range, and it still has a ton of power. So huge props to E-Ride Pro. They're making a super cool bike, and there is some super cool stuff coming from them in the future. So you guys need to stay tuned for that. It's gonna be super exciting. Please subscribe, guys. If you enjoy this channel and you are grateful for the work that we put in reviewing these bikes and helping you guys know what is the best bike for you, hit that subscribe button. We really appreciate it. We've got more content on the way, super exciting stuff. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll catch you next video. See ya.